I am unashamed. What about you?
So welcome back to Unashamed. It was an interesting day yesterday. I appeared for the first time in a long time on the Duck Call Room, which is our sister podcast, or brother, I guess, podcast. You would say sister because it's their link.
You're depicting that relationship way closer than I would call it.
Well, they're next door, just they're on the other side of the wall.
Well, that's proximity. I would say that we have.
Well, we first, yeah. So they were birthed out of our.
No.
Oh, yeah.
If that happened, that was an illegitimate transaction.
I mean, Sadie was already going, but they weren't. I don't know how long they were.
My point was, I know we have probably 15% to 20% of nonsensical stuff on this podcast.
Maybe, yeah.
Because we just can't help ourselves. But they have 98% nonsensical.
But have you noticed, I don't know when you go on there, but when I go on there, man, maybe it's just because Cy is my biggest sermon fan, so he wants to talk Bible when I go on. And
no, we just make fun of each other.
Okay.
When I
he likes to get serious.
They do at the end. Let me do they have one Bible thought.
Verse. Yeah.
Thus the 2%, and so every time I'm on there, they get me to do the 2%.
Well, so Beth, who's kind of gets people on all of our podcasts, she's been trying to get me on there for a while, and I'm just like, Beth, I'm busy. I love those guys, but I'm just too busy. And so finally, the only way they got me was because they wanted Mom to come on, and Mom was up for it. Mom's been doing great.
Oh, she was on.
She was on the podcast. So I said, well, if you'll have Mom on, I'll go with Mom just to make sure, Yeah, so Mom and I went on. It was Mom and me and then Cy, and then Johnny D did part, and then Martin came in about half.
Wow, you didn't. I mean, when you added our mom,
yeah,
that's a good move.
Well, exactly.
Because it took out some of the nonsense.
Exactly. And it was great, though, because, Mom was Mom, and she and Cy told some stuff. And it was good to have me on there, not as a host, but a guest, because I just told stories and set up Mom and Cy.
Now, having said all what I've said, I love the podcast. It's just a comedy. It's designed. I think people need to laugh.
But
it's a strange.
It moves at lightning speed too, though. When I was on it, it was like you got to be like, whoa, it's
you got to be ready.
Well,
That's right.
What the phenomenon is? All you producer types, y'all hadn't figured it out. What y'all create?
He needs you, Zach.
Well, because I'm a common sense man, and Zach needs me to simplify his life. So now I'm going to simplify this for you. What you created on why that show works. Because you think, well, how could you have, it's kind of like Seinfeld. How could you have a show about nothing?
And I was on record as saying it wouldn't work, and I've been wrong, because I thought without solid content, you can't make it. That was my line. So
I'm trying to reveal to you
okay,
why
I want
it
to
works.
hear it. I'm here.
What you did was you created a guy, a storyteller, who that's his number one thing in life.
Yep.
Cy tells the best stories of anyone I've ever met.
And by the way, Jace, I said yesterday on their podcast how that when you and I were young lads, we loved it when Cy would come home. We'd see him every other year because, deployments and all that. And just to sit around and listen to his stories. You remember he'd come in and tell us some new thing from Germany?
But what you created was you created a studio audience. And what that is, it's the other people in the podcast, but they don't realize it. Because all they do is sit there and laugh. They think, I have a podcast.
And you're right. Johnny D laughed the whole time.
It's like, no, you don't. Cy has a podcast, and the people who are participating in the podcast, they're the studio audience, but they don't realize it.
Well, and then I'll say this, that they've taken it one step further, which I thought from watching the new Revival show, I thought it was brilliant to use the podcast as the setting of the old Duck Call Room, the actual Duck Call Room, and it is symbolic that it's in the Duck Call Room, because now Willie goes in and bounces stuff off of it.
We did the same thing in the Duck Family Treasure show.
So I'm glad you brought it up, Duck Family Treasure, because so this yesterday was an interesting day. It was supposed to be our quote unquote off day, but I'd done this podcast. I took Mom home. She's doing great. She took a nap. She said, I've worked today. I got to take a nap. I said, all right, Mom, we'll get you set up. So then we had guests over last night. We had some friends come in. and they're all at my house. But then I was like, Jay said, we're going to play dominoes. Jace is supposed to come up. And I said,
yeah, it was my day off. I had just been to Harding. Remember, I did that.
Yeah, I want to hear about that too.
Well, we were going to go fishing the day after,
Right.
but the weather was bad. So we wound up driving back in the middle of the night. So I was like, oh, well, at least I have Tuesday off. This is the first day in probably 12 days that there's nothing scheduled.
Right.
So Jay lined that up. We're going to eat some red snapper and play dominoes. And I was like, can't wait. I was like, I'm going to
So
go
that
play
was
golf.
the back end of what I heard was Jay was cooking red snapper, Jace was coming up, and then I thought I heard him say something about you being on Jesse Waters, but it wasn't like it was told to me. In fact, it was just a passing comment. So I didn't know about all this. I grilled hamburgers, had guests over, so I had a house full of people.
Yeah.
And we had Fox News was just on, but I had it muted, and we're all just visiting. But
I wasn't there.
You weren't there, and I didn't really know. And I thought, somebody said something about Jay's been on Jesse Waters, and I look up what Jesse Waters is on. But Charlie Hurt, who's a guy I really like as a fill-in on Fox, was the host. And I said, I think Jace may be on here. Mom said, well, I want to hear it. I said, well, Mom, we're watching. I hadn't seen him. So I said, I bet it's going to be the last segment they do.
Well, you were right.
And I was right.
But in the real world, they said 7:30, and then this was a crazy
At
story.
7:57.
No, 7:55. But they kept moving it up,
Yeah.
and you're like, well, how did this happen? Well, I woke up Tuesday morning in a fog because it had just,
Late night from
late
Harding.
night, and which went well, and I learned why it took them. I thought it was 7 years since I had been there.
Yeah.
But he said it was 6, which I like 7 better because that's the perfect number.
complete number.
In Revelation. 6 is man's number, which means almost. That's an apocalypto reference.
That's apocalyptic humor for you guys out there.
Good.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not perfect.
Not quite. Yeah.
Not perfect. So I said, well, my opening line was, it's good to be back. It only took, I said 7 years, and the guy who asked me, he interrupted me and said, actually, it's been 6, And so,
Which would happen at a seminary.
They do a theme every year, and you know how these kind of crusty traditions are. And so he's like, well, they're doing a speech on Jonah. It's like a Bible camp, and they're trying to recruit them to come to their Bible school, and perhaps be pastors and teachers and. So,
which by the way, is much. I didn't know that. That's where you were going, but that's so needed because we got way more people that need preachers than we got preachers willing to go preach.
Well, if you get 3 dozen young men who are thinking about doing this, I'll drive up there.
Yeah, which I tip my hat to. Jace.
Kind of shocked that and I'm doing it again next week, but they have a whole new camp. It's like week long.
Okay,
thing.
well I get it now.
But look, here's what I thought was funny. They said, well, the reason it took so long is because we do a theme every week. So it's like Jonah, or he didn't name any of the others, and he's like, well, you're the Jonah guy. So I'm on a 6-year rotation every time they study Jonah. And I said, well, wait a minute here.
I love this story.
I'm not getting the parallel. We had Jonah who was eaten by a fish.
Yeah.
And I catch fish.
That's right.
So that's me.
And he was running from his mission.
Well, I thought, I haven't been swallowed by a fish. Why is this only my lane? I was like, I'm versatile. But anyway, it was kind of a funny moment. But it went real well. So to get back to the story, so I woke up that next morning and I had an email, and it's like, see you tonight. And it was from Fox. And because I think I told the story, maybe I have to recollect my memory, about us. We were going to be on Fox and Friends and do this big promo, and the camera crew.
Oh, they showed up. Yeah, you tell the story.
Came up.
Missy, Jeff, and Jess were there.
We were all just totally
It was
ready.
a Sunday morning.
Producer in my ear, 2 minutes to air, and then we got canceled. So I think they felt bad about that once they found that out. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, well, and they have our show. It's just been released, new episodes of Fox.
When did you do when did you do the actual recording of the show? Yesterday?
It was live last night.
Oh, I went live, baby. And look, I'm going to tell you this.
Here's what's interesting. Yeah, because we actually have an episode on YouTube, our last episode that posted a couple days ago. and it says Jace. The title is Jace gets bumped on live TV. So I wonder if they saw that.
Perfect.
Guess
what? A few days later, the resurrection.
He's back, baby.
We're in the resurrection theme.
Well, it's summertime. We live in the South, which means that in every drink, what do we have, Jill? Ice cold tea. We put ice in
lemonade.
Our lemonade. You got to have ice in it, and the kind of ice you have matters. So we've got one of the best ice makers on the planet right now. It's the Pebble Ice Maker by Chef Man, and
good,
so good. If you love like the ice that's like small, like a pebble size, it's soft, chewable texture. I mean, I'm addicted to this stuff. It cools our drink super fast. It's like this restaurant style nugget ice. You can get it in like 20 minutes. So it happens real quick. Have you ever noticed that Pebble Ice absorbs the flavors of the beverage that you're?
Yes, like when it gets to the bottom part of the drink and that last pieces.
It's the best. Pebble Ice is the way to go for summer drinks. And Pebble Ice is going to be, it's the hit when we have people over for barbecues this summer, Jill. And during this flash sale, Chef Man's countertop Pebble Ice Maker is up to 30% off. And since it's portable, I can take it anywhere. I can take it outside for grilling or wherever. It's so simple to set up because you don't even have to have a water line to hook it up. All you got to do is fill the tank with water and turn it on. You got to try this. It's perfect for your kitchen, your office, your outdoor patio. The flash sale is on, and the Pebble Ice Maker is up to 30% off. But you need to hurry before it sells out. Visit chefman.com/unashamed and use promo code unashamed30 for this flash sale. Again, that's chefman.com/unashamed, promo code unashamed30. Unashamed Nation, they heard you. They heard your frustration.
They did, but here's what's funny. Do you know, and I think it was guilt. It was a guilt offering. They, because they were like, I'm not going to New York. And you've already stood me up 2 minutes in and made my wife mad. And so they're like, we're going to send you a van. And I thought, what does that mean? I'd never done a recording in a van.
Which, by the way, the only other person I've heard tell this story similar to you was Allie Beth Stuckey, because she does a lot of hits on Fox. And she's told me about the van.
You know, it was the freakiest thing I've ever done.
I've heard about this van.
You go in the van, or is it like a satellite?
Oh, you go in the van. And look, a very nice woman. I want to clarify this. Very nice, cordial, very professional. But she had purple hair. A lot of tattoos. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
And she's asking you to get in a van. You're going against everything you were taught as a child.
That was my first impression. When I walked out there and she opened that door, I thought, boy, if somebody drove by my house right now and saw me getting in a van with this woman, I'm just not, I don't know how I'm going to spend this. I'm like, hey, I'm fixing to do a TV show.
To be fair, as intimidating as that might have been for you, I think it would be
about
more
it from her
intimidating
perspective.
if you're her and you pull up and you're inviting this guy in the van. She's like, whoa.
She's texting her loved one back home saying, you know what, if you don't hear from me again.
Zach, I'm not going to lie. When our eyes met, because I knocked on her.
It was like two Baptists in a liquor store.
When I tapped on the door and she turned, I thought, I didn't say it in the spirit of Phil. I didn't say whoa, but I thought whoa,
and she thought the same.
I could see it in her eyes. She didn't have any idea who I was, and I think she thought, I'm not sure if I'm going to let this guy in this van. But, you walk in and it is a complete... Look, she said, would you like pictures of the set? Because one of them is how I looked on TV, but the other one is the big picture. So it's you'll be shocked when you see this picture.
Well, and so why you just described that. So let me explain the real time what's happening. So I got a house full of people. We're waiting on Jace to play dominoes. I think he maybe is about to appear, but I don't know. So all of a sudden, Mom says, there he is. And so they ran a clip from the show, and so I turn up the sound. We got to shut Cy down, who's just into ad nauseum stories at the side. Be quiet, Mom. It's just And so we watched the bite, and you were. It was much better than you thought it was. Us watching
I was so uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was actually great. You had no idea you were sitting in a van.
I felt stiff. I felt, and look, when you blink,
it was 3 minutes.
When you blink, it's over.
Yeah.
And they asked me about our dad.
Yeah.
And then he asked about the show. And then at the end, the only thing I remember is when because somebody in my ear said, "You're done." Well, I just said, and it was sweet. And because she said, "You're done."
Yeah.
And I just paused. Well, then she started counting down 9, 8. And they're fixing to
for
break.
him.
Yeah.
That's hard break because they're
And
going to the
then
next
he
one.
spent those 8 seconds trying to remember the name of
And
the
he
show.
could not remember.
So I thought, well, I could have done that. But look, in your mind, I think the reason I felt like I didn't do very good is I had watched. I don't watch TV. I'm just confessing here. I don't watch TV. But I thought, because in the little email I got, they said he may ask you about the day's political events or your dad,
Which they always give you
and
that,
the show.
yeah.
So I was like, well, I don't know what happened today. Political.
That would have been a nightmare.
Jace,
what did you think?
TV.
What did
That
you
would've
think
been
about
good.
President Trump's comments today? Well,
So look, I prepared a bit for that interview,
Yeah.
which I didn't realize it was going to be 3 minutes long, but that I did not give.
Yeah.
So I would like to share it with you because I watched the first 30 minutes of the program that I was on. And you know what
Just
it was
in
all
case.
about?
What?
Alligator Alcatraz.
oh right, yeah.
And look, when I first heard it, I thought, what the heck is this? Alligator. I've never heard it. I was thinking Alcatraz is a prison.
Because Trump went down there.
Well, so I watched. I got the story about ICE catches
Yeah.
the agents in this DeSantis. They're building a little place out in Everglades.
it's sort of like Angola. It's surrounded by things that'll hurt you.
So I thought he's going to ask me about that.
Yeah.
because he knows. Because the way
Which really
look,
would have been a good question had he had time.
Well, here was going to be my first thing I said. I thought, so let me get this right. You got middle of nowhere,
Yep.
alligators and snakes everywhere,
Yep.
and you're going to put people there. And so they call it Alligator Alcatraz. I was like, that pretty much sounds like the first 20 years of my life. I was in the middle of nowhere. I was surrounded by alligators.
That would have been a good
and
line.
snakes.
That
And
was
I
a good
thought,
line.
You grew up in Alligator
this
Alcatraz.
is my childhood. But
You're
great
like,
point.
this isn't prison. This is like.
So then
This
they
is
were,
lifestyle.
showing clips of Trump talking about the alligator. All of a sudden, he's an authority on what's going on. And I thought, they're going to ask me that because they know I'm literally living with alligators and snakes. But you know what I found interesting? So I looked it up because I've never thought alligators are very
No, they're
dangerous.
not. They're not very aggressive.
I'm around them. I've hit them in the head with,
they're not
with a
aggressive.
boat paddle. It didn't hurt him, trust me.
right.
But I'm like, get out of my way. And now snakes is a different
Yeah.
story because they'll bite you and kill
They
you.
will bite you, and they'll come
But
after you.
alligators, it just so I looked it up. I think this was fascinating. I was going to say this. I was going to say I realize what we're trying to do, create this fear and don't. But actually, if they take their chances with the alligators, they got a pretty good
They
shot
got a
of
pretty good
living.
shot.
Here's the stat I wanted to show you. In the last 75 years, if you average out the death of humans by alligators, you know what the ratio is?
Death of humans to alligators?
Yeah, by alligators.
Oh, it's got
Every 3 years, one person dies.
Yeah.
That's not. You got a way greater chance of getting hit by a bus
Or
falling
just
down,
tripping and hitting your
I mean,
head. Yeah.
That's not very much. I was shocked.
But
I grew up in North Florida, where there are a lot of alligators, a lot. And if you, we go skiing on the Swanee River, and swimming in the Swanee River as kids, and I was never able to get close to an alligator. I mean, you get close to them, they're gone.
Yeah,
They're
leave
not
you.
like a.
They're very non-aggressive.
Oh, I mean, you see
There
a
are
13-foot
when
gator
they're on a nest. There are times when you got to, you just have to be smart. But for the most part, they're not aggressive at all.
Well, so the reason I did that is because I was going to say people in politics and the media, they sensationalize stories.
right.
Because one of the clips that they thought about running, and they did, was we were looking for bullets from the Bonnie and Clyde ambush that happened, I think that happened in the 30s, during the Depression.
Yeah.
And we did that. And I think I found one.
Yeah.
I mean, I hunted all day looking, and I was in a place of just wilderness with a lot of
Yeah,
danger.
and you mentioned about it being surrounded.
in the clip. So I was going to make that point, because I felt weird about doing that episode because I'm like, these people murdered people They were burglars.
But they're like folk heroes.
Well, they became that because the media sensationalized it. And at the end of the day, I mean, they were ambushed with. And look, they still have that car. The car that was riddled, and something else they had. I think the clothes that Clyde was wearing. It's like in a casino in Nevada. I mean, it's still a thing.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, part of the reason I think, it justified me looking for that, though, was thinking this is what happens, though, when you take on law and order. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a country. I mean, they took them out in a very violent way. But and then I came up with a joke. I invented a joke, and I was going to tell it, and it was just so disappointing when we didn't go that direction and only had 3 minutes. But so here's the joke. Did you know? Now, I'll give you a fact, and then I made up a joke about it. So in South Louisiana, which you can't be anymore surrounded by alligators there.
Unless you're in Florida. Where
do you know what they call alligators to this day? The Cajuns? They call them cocodrie. Well, that's the French word for crocodile.
Yeah.
But they're not crocodiles, they're alligators.
They're right.
So I made up a joke. Do you know why a Cajun calls an alligator a cocodrie, a crocodile? Do you know?
No.
Because they taste the same in a gumbo.
That's the line you were going to use on this show. That's pretty good.
I didn't read that. I made it up. Maddie? Oh, she gave me a thumbs up. Boy, where's our applause button? All right.
Golly, that was good.
Well, Jace did manage to get in a great fill line because he was talking about, I guess you were talking about treasure hunting and used the line that Dad used to use all the time it's the most fun you can have with your clothes on.
Yeah, and he busted out laughing.
He did laugh. That was a great line.
You got that one out
Jace
there.
got that one in. So you did get a funny line.
I don't know about the rest of you. Al, I do know you're on a health kick, Al. So you and we're actually getting blood work done, labs done on a regular basis now. We're doing our annual checkups with the doctor. You're still doing that, right, Al?
Oh yeah. You reach a certain age, you got to kind of find out what's going on inside your body.
Yeah, I never really cared about it as much until recently, but now I'm 47 years old. I'm starting to think about those things. I'm monitoring my lab work. I'm looking at ways to better our health. We've obviously, lost a lot of weight between the two of us, and really thinking about, being able to be active in the future. I want to be healthy. And so that's where our friends at Field of Greens come in. These guys are great. There's one simple lifestyle upgrade that we can all make that's easy, and that is Field of Greens. You can enjoy a delicious glass of doctor-formulated Field of Greens each day. It's super easy, and you're going to feel amazing. Plus, your doctor will notice your improved health or your money back. That's a big deal. One Field of Greens customer said the best blood work I've had in a decade. My doctor said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Another one said that for the first time in years, my cholesterol numbers are normal. And then one mom said, after Field of Greens, my hair, my nails, energy, blood work, they all are better. How can a fruit and vegetable drink promise better health? Well, each fruit and vegetable in Field of Greens was doctor selected to support vital organs like your liver, your heart, your kidneys, your metabolism, your immune system, healthy blood cells, etc. So I'm drinking this every morning. This is part of my ritual. I fill my glass up. It's delicious. And I know it's good for me and getting all my vegetables in one serving. Let us get you started with 20% off and free shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com. Use promo code Unashamed. That's fieldofgreens.com, promo code Unashamed.
So we did, and then we played Dominoes.
So we watched it. So we watched the whole thing just from our perspective, and everybody's like, yay, Jase did great. And like 5 minutes later, you walked in.
I walked in, and I ate some red.
There's Jase. He was just on Fox News. Now he's here.
I ate some red snapper.
It was delicious.
It was fantastic.
And who won the Dominoes game?
Well, Al lost with Si.
Yeah, I played with Si the first game. I was just keeping Jace's seat warm because I had guests, and we lost to Philip and Jay, who have gotten a lot better. Did you notice that?
Yeah, and so then we played 2 games after you left. They won the first one.
Yeah. Did you finally win, I hope?
And then we won.
Okay,
me and
good.
Si, and he's like, well,
they'll get
boys,
the big head.
it took a while, but the best players rise to the top.
Y'all didn't break any. You didn't break a table, did you?
I did.
Did you get a good slam
blood vessel? It's weird you say that.
Yeah,
I mean, it shows you how rusty.
I've been around enough Robertson Dominoes games that what happens
I chipped
is
a bone in my thumb one time playing with those.
Oh, you slam one down. I mean, you could.
Dad had the all-time best slam. Dad had because he just had that. I don't know. He had that torque in that upper body, but he had the best. He could slam one, and everybody's dominoes will fall.
He did.
He had the best, but I have a pretty good one too. You got to have strong hands to have it.
So I had one last night that was scary. He's a reactionary. He was
he talks.
He was sitting there. He said, "Oh," because it's so funny to play dominoes with Si, because he's like, "Okay, boys, now I could do this." He's talking to himself. He's looking at his dominoes and he's giving you this weird color commentary. He's like, "But then that little piggy would say, no." And it's like, it turned into a nursery rhyme thing. And he said, "But you know what I think?" He said, "I think this one is just right." Wham!
I'm talking about 15, boys.
It's so funny.
Well, he was playing with me, and I was wondering what he was going to do, and I was like, "Si, did that oxygen, is that still going?" Because I'm wondering, maybe if that thing ran out on him, that he's like got a lack of supply going to the top.
You're talking about some energy level. You talk about some just raw testosterone. You go watch a Robertson Dominoes game. It's intense.
And it's really turned out great because Philip and Jay have bonded into their role as sort of like Philip was on the show. They're like the villains to the Robertsons now. Yeah. And they've gotten good. So it really becomes a fun night. So
you know what's funny? The funniest line of the night, we got to the end, and I said, Philip's got the 666. I killed him earlier. I said, Si sitting over there, he's got the dead double blank. So Jay, his two domino, but I was thinking out loud because it didn't matter what I was fixed to do. It was fixed to play out.
Yeah.
And I did it. And then Jay said, "And y'all play poker with this guy?" Because all the dominoes, when they turned over, everybody had what I said.
Because you can tell what people have from watching them play. Yeah,
exactly. But it was fun. It was a fun night. All right, we're in John 11.
All right. Are you gonna? Did you tell everything about Harding you wanted to tell? Because
I mean, we're going back next week, so I'll revisit that later since we've exceeded our 15% of nonsensical behavior. But I thought y'all would find that fascinating. I mean, who sends a van down by the river to put you on, TV from New York City? Isn't that weird?
Chris Farley would do that. From the old SEO
In fact,
days.
You got it, Jay. You're starting to get my joke.
Allie Beth told me she won't even do the van at her house. She does it at an undisclosed location. So now I know why. All right, so we're about to get into John 11. Is that right? Did we finish up the divine counsel on the last?
I think we.
podcast?
I thought the look.
We didn't finish it up, but we at least got people's appetite wet. That's a whole other. That could be a whole podcast series.
As they say, I think it's time to move on.
All right, it's time to move on. Last time we had a live studio audience, which I think upped mine and Jace's game here because they were with us.
Well, I will say this. Talking about Jesus the shepherd and we're the sheep and the thief coming in to kill and destroy. I do think the segue is when you talk about spiritual warfare, because Jesus did bring up Psalm 82, and so there are this war, Ephesians 6, Ephesians 3. But I think you got to remember the last enemy to be destroyed is death.
Yeah.
And it is an enemy. And so I think in God's providence and inspiration of the scriptures, that's why we're going into John 11, which is one of the most shocking chapters in all not just the Bible, in literature.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought it up because everything we've done in this journey of John has led to now this point, because this is the last big sign, if you want to look at it that way, that's going to then lead into his death week, as we call it, which is him going into the the last week on the Passover and all that. So this is a huge and final sort of proving of who he is, because remember every chapter now we've been in the last probably 6 chapters has been this debate: is he really the guy? Is he not the guy? So now this is going to be the big one, and this is also going to push the leadership as we get to the end of chapter 11 over the edge in terms of saying he's got to die. You know, I mean, they're saying they're going to sacrifice him to save the nation. What's interesting is he's already said he's sacrificing himself to save the world. So it is an interesting place that we're getting to.
Now we're gonna linger here a while for future podcasts. I have lots of rabbit holes.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff.
But we're talking about the resurrection.
Yeah.
So just think about this.
It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, since everyone who are at the sound of our voices, this is coming.
Yeah.
Death is coming. That's why when it's viewed as the last enemy, 1 Corinthians 15, to be destroyed, we're good.
Exactly.
But these are the shadows of that fixing to happen.
So I'll just give you the overview. There's kind of four. The story is told from my looking at it in 4 acts. And so the first one is a friend of Jesus, Lazarus, gets sick and dies. And it's very interesting because, as we'll get into in the text, Jesus doesn't seem to be in a big hurry to get there to save him. And I'm saying that quote in air quotes because we know what's going to happen. But from their perspective, they're like, why is he not wanting to hurry up and get there? Then you've got a situation where his sisters, Mary and Martha, are struggling with the idea of loss and also that Jesus didn't come and save their brother. And that leads into a very interesting discussion about the resurrection. And then Jesus obviously raises him as the third act and shows his power over death, and which is amazing. That's probably the linchpin. And then the last act is the fallout from this raising of Lazarus and what that means to the leadership and the people who are watching. So that's kind of how I laid the story out.
And I think there's a seam line in there in which I would say is prayer in Jesus's prayer life. There's only one verse about it, but
I know exactly.
I think if you look at the big picture here, he spent a couple days. I mean, there's a request, and you're like, well, how come? Why didn't you come?
Right.
And so then later in the story, he mentions that he's thankful that his prayers were heard.
Yeah.
So it kind of
makes you think, what was he doing for those 2 days?
Exactly.
I'm
bringing that up because there's a lot of very exciting things in this chapter because it kind of it makes you think how humans are just obsessed with, and rightfully so, of being able to change the past, and we can't.
Yeah.
But I mean, I thought of the movie like Back to the Future and Groundhog Day, all these movies that come out, because it's like you always think, if we could go back and change something, well, what would it be like? We're fascinated by that.
Yeah.
And so I think Jesus really, for the most significant time of his ministry, he takes that and does something so fascinating that it just changes how you view like the past and that concept,
right?
Because that's kind of the would you say criticism from the confrontation. If you'd have been here, Mary and Martha, they both said that if
you could have changed the outcome.
You could have changed it, and so that's what we tend to do when something bad happens.
No, I think that's a brilliant observation on the outset because I had this conversation yesterday. So my granddaughter comes home, and she's working at a pharmacy, and she's telling me about this Bible discussion they've had today at work. And I was like, oh, this is great. And so she's like, but a lot of it was dealing with people who I think missed that whole idea that God is outside of time and space. We're inside time and space. He's there, but he's also here working in the process. And to understand Scripture and God, you have to realize that he's so much bigger than we are. Mm-hmm. But you get these doctrines that come up because people don't realize that.
So, Jill, have you noticed that everything is going up in price these days?
Oh, yeah.
We are in the days of inflation, ladies and gentlemen. But I want to tell you about a way you can save money without breaking the bank. If you're on Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, any of the big guys, and that's who you're using for your cell phone coverage, trust me, you are overpaying, period. Mm-hmm. You're paying for retail stores that you probably never even go into and unnecessary perks that you're never going to use. And I can pretty much guarantee you this, that you're paying a massive premium for what you think is superior 5G service, but here's the truth, that Pure Talk uses the same 5G networks as the big guys. Same towers, same network. The only difference is they don't charge you or overcharge you for any of the garbage. Instead, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data for just $25 a month. Yes, that's right, $25 a month. That's less than half the price of the big guys. I'm a Pure Talk customer. I made the switch, and I can tell you the coverage is second to none. Switching is easy. You can keep your phone, you can keep your phone number, and all your contacts. It's all done in as little as 10 minutes. And plus, I love these guys because, Jill, they support veterans, which we love our vets.
Yeah,
they're raising money to eliminate veteran debt, to end veteran suicides. And also, they're raising money to support these trades for these veterans when they get out of active duty. So we're behind these guys 100%. We love Pure Talk. Do this. Go to puretalk.com/unashamed, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month. You can literally be switched over to Pure Talk in less than 10 minutes. That's puretalk.com/unashamed to switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans.
That's why I said it's going to take us a while to go through here, because you got to wrap your head around. We're familiar with it enough with this story where we think, oh yeah, I got that. But a lot of people are like, well, why wasn't he doing that to everybody? Why don't he just raise everybody up?
Right.
Why was he healing these other people? Why didn't he just go to the graveyards and raise everybody up?
All right.
And so I think the experience is kind of like what we did for our faith, family, and freedom. We had a lot of people there for the first time in our family. You were one of them.
Yeah.
But everybody said the same thing. Well, I had no idea this is what y'all were doing, which I don't know what everybody thought, you know. But it's like, this is awesome.
Right.
This is... And I was telling Missy, she's like, I'm just so shocked, because Martin was like, well, if I'd have known y'all were doing this, I'd have been here every year. And she's like, well, what do you mean by that? He's like, I just had no idea. I thought y'all were just selling stuff. I didn't know it was just mainly about sharing Jesus.
Well, I did know that. I just haven't been in town.
But I told Missy, I was like, you don't know what you don't know. I was like, it's kind of like coming to Jesus. You think you got it figured out, but until you experience it, then you're like, oh, this is way better than I ever dreamed or imagined.
Exactly. Which is exactly what happens in this text. So how do we want to start? Let me just read the first section, and then we just do it by section, you think?
I think so.
All right. So we've just, now remember, the setting is that Jesus has left, Jerusalem and gone to the Jordan, across the Jordan, and back where John was in the beginning, sort of in the wilderness, quote unquote. And so he's kind of left because things have gotten really hot there. And so that's where he is when this word comes in chapter 11, just so you know the context of where we're at in the story. So here's John 11. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, which is very close to Jerusalem. It's just a couple of miles away. The village of of Mary and her sister Martha. And we see them in other contexts. There's one in Luke 10 where it tells about, remember the story, and I don't know if y'all got into this with Missy and Jill on here, but it kind of gives their background of how they are. And we
got into it.
Okay, good. So it says, this Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, so now we know it's two sisters and a brother, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. So they're like, this is a distress call. When he heard this, Jesus said to his disciples, whoever was there within hearing, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it, which reminded me a lot of the statement he made from the John 9 guy. Yeah. Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. And Jase referenced that because he's going to talk about prayer later. Then he said to his disciples, let us go back to Judea. So after 2 days, we're going. But Rabbi, they said, a short while ago the Jews tried to stone you. Yet you were going back there? Remember, that's why he left. Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours of daylight? A man who walks by day will not stumble, for he sees this world's light. He sees by this world's light. It is when he walks by night that he stumbles, for he has no light. So it's an interesting little parable he tells there. After he had said this, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him up. His disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better. So in other words, why are we going? He's just asleep. Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So that's one of those little John caveats. We like it when he puts those in. Verse 14, so then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe, but let us go to him. I love it don't you sense when you read something like that, it's like Jesus is almost frustrated that they can't get it, but he's like, all right, here's the deal. So then Thomas, called Didymus, and he's always the one that is the doubting guy, said to the rest of the disciples, let us also go that we may die with him.
Which I thought was pretty profound.
I thought that was very profound, which is why Thomas keeps getting brought up, I think. He had some insight.
Well, but then later they're like, well, he's known as Doubting Thomas, but in that moment, that seems pretty courageous to me.
Because he thought that, well, if we go back there, they're going to kill us. So, I'm ready.
My point is, I think we just take it for granted. The fact that Thomas wanted to see Jesus for himself.
Yeah.
We're just, if somebody died, and even if they claim to be God, I don't care what culture, at what time period, I would be like, no, I'm going to see that. I want to shake his hand, So I think he gets a bad rap for being a doubter. I think this is pretty impressive here.
Yeah, I think it's very powerful.
So there's some subtleties I wanted to bring up. One is this is happening at Bethany, which the reason it got my attention is because Bethel, think Jacob's ladder in John 1, was known as House of God. And I think it's a direct reference to when Jesus said in John 2, I am the temple.
Yeah.
And you remember that little conversation he had with Nathaniel in chapter 1 about Jacob's ladder being referenced. But I was also going to bring up Bethany's mentioned in John 1 with John the Baptist, who would later be beheaded. And the reason I'm bringing this up, because Bethany means house of poor or afflicted or misery.
Yeah.
And isn't it interesting? There's something to this, because when you look at all the times that Jesus went to Bethany, there's something supernatural that's representing that he's going to the poor, the afflicted, and the miserable. Think the Beatitudes.
Yeah.
Blessed are those. And he's here to not only help, but he's here because they have a little clearer mind and are more open because they're desperate.
Yeah.
They're broken.
And you just hit the word that I always use, desperate. If you're desperate, you're open to some new ideas because you got none of your own. And that's interesting because people who are spiritually desperate, whether they have money or possessions or anything else, you're desperate. You have no other answers, which is when you tend to be a seeker.
And I think the powerful point that I'm trying to make, the reason I did that is because the last paragraph in Luke 24, I'm going to read it. This is verse 50. Now this is post-resurrection, obviously. When he had led them out to the vicinity of Bethany, now he's with his disciples here.
This is post-resurrection.
He lifted up his hands and blessed them. While he was blessing them, he left them and was taken up into heaven. Then they worshipped him and returned to Jerusalem with great joy. And they stayed continually at the temple praising God. But I just thought, of all places he could go to leave, he went back there, and there's a lot of significant things that happen at the place known as the house of the poor, the afflicted, the downtrodden, the miserable.
And to add to that, Jace, the last week of his life in Jerusalem, you remember he would be in Jerusalem in the temple courts doing different things, teaching, but every night he went back to Bethany.
Yeah.
And so
I think it answers that fundamental question people have. Just even this little rabbit hole in Bethany, it's like God doesn't care. Look around and all. But when you start getting into the weeds of this, and you start saying, is Jesus real? Did he visit the planet? And you see what he did. And so to say he doesn't care, no matter what your situation, there's no, you can't be so far or so down or so miserable that he can't inspire you and make you a new creation.
And I like it too that all of us have places in our lives. Maybe it was some place where we had, some kind of connection. I think about Camp Chioka, which is 90 acres out here, just, of ridge land in Calhoun, Louisiana, with a bunch of pine trees. But Zach, when I think about looking back over the years, the impact a place like that has, you can go back out there and walk around. Gosh. And so it's just 90 acres in Calhoun, but if you were there and spiritually moved as a young person, then it becomes a special place to you. I like that Jesus, even on this earth, has a special place. I mean, some place that connects him to people, So I'm on the road a lot, out there speaking across the fruited plains. And I have to say, one of the things I miss the most when I'm not here or I'm not down at my place in Gulf Shores is my Helix mattress. Jace, can you relate to that?
Ditto. There's nothing like crawling up in one.
Oh, it's so good. Zach, you guys have one as well?
Yeah, I took the sleep quiz. You know how that sleep quiz you can take and it will tell you exactly how to, which one's going to match with you. So we took the quiz, and ours is a Midnight Lux because it's not too firm, not too soft. It's perfect for Jill and I because we are both side sleepers. So that's how we sleep, and figured that out. And honestly, since I've been on a Helix mattress, I'm like, man, this is best sleep I've ever had.
So Lisa and I are the Moonlight because that's the firmness that we like, and we're back sleepers because I have a CPAP machine. So it fits whatever your needs are. We've had Helix now for many years, as long as we've been doing this podcast. All of us use it. It helps not only with just your sleep, but also hip and shoulder pain. It's the thing I miss the most when I'm not home. So if you wear a sleep tracker, you can find out all the improvements in a Helix mattress as well. For a limited time, you can go to helixsleep.com/unashamed for 27% off site-wide, exclusive for listeners of Unashamed. That's helixsleep.com/unashamed for 27% off site-wide, helixsleep.com/unashamed. Better sleep is waiting for you.
I mean, I think that's the thing that Jase is saying, that like these aren't like random places that he's going.
Right.
Which I love that because it is the intentionality of Jesus coming into a particular place is important to think about how he's redeeming the whole place. And I think it's a kind of like a picture of even our own salvation. Like Christ enters into a particular place, my body, my heart, and there's a redemption going on there, but he's also accomplishing a bigger redemptive process through individual people.
Yeah.
But the intentionality, it seems to be the opposite view of kind of a deist view where God's just up there. He's, wound up the watch and he's just watching time tick by. He's not involved. He's just down here looking. No, he's not he's not just looking down. He actually enters in. And not only does he enter in, then he specifically and strategically goes into each place that he goes into, and Bethany is certainly one of those places.
Yeah, and I even think that's the way God feels about this planet, this place he created. I mean, the Bible tells us about a new heaven and a new earth. There's something special. God Almighty didn't, as far as we know from our reading of Scripture, we don't know that he visited any other planet, but he sure came here.
Exactly. Yeah. So the next little point I want to make is, and we're kind of setting you up. I'm purposely laying a foundation because we're going to get into some deep stuff, which some of this I haven't told y'all about. And
I like it when he's setting us up too, Zach.
But I'm laying a foundation here. So if you listen to our podcast consecutively, some of these things that I'm going to bring out that can't be accidental. I just brought out one about the Bethany thing, but I'm going to bring up another one. Because it wasn't the first time Jesus said, he's just asleep. And I want to read that little story.
Yeah.
Because before I read the other story, now I want you to just forget you knew anything about John 11. And if you were just a human being and Jesus, who's claiming to be Son of God, and you're like, okay, I think this is him. Because he did say, and you read it, but he says, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up. So they're like, Lord, if he's asleep, he'll get better. Because this sounds kind of like redneck logic.
Yeah.
He was sick. Oh, and you're saying he's not dead. We trust you, and you can't lie. So sleep's good. Jesus had, which is something I need to repent of, because they're right, and I don't get much sleep. So Jesus had been speaking of his death. So I love how John just kind of explains this. But his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. Why? Because he said it. He is the truth.
Yeah.
But then he's like, so then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. But if you were just a human being, you're like, well, which is it? Is he asleep or dead? I mean, you just said it. And he also said this sickness will not end in death. Said that in verse 4. Mm-hmm. Now, we kind of know the end of the story, but in that moment, they're like, well, which is it?
Well, he's not dead.
Of course, I'm thinking Jesus is thinking, exactly.
Exactly.
You're asking the wrong question.
He purposely phrased it the way he did to make it seem different.
And I'm going to tell you this foundational principle that I'm trying to establish, because when we get into some really hard to understand things where lots of doctrines have gone in every direction, I hope you'll remember this conversation we're having now. But this other story is found in Mark 5, where, see, it's in the section where it's like a dead girl and a sick woman. That's what the Thompson Jane reference put here. And, I mean, we don't have to read the whole story, but I'll pick it up in verse 36, 35. While Jesus was still speaking, some men came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue ruler. Your daughter is dead, they said. Why bother the teacher anymore? Ignoring what they said, Jesus told the synagogue ruler, don't be afraid, just believe. He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, and the brother of James, which I think another reason I want to read this is because when he eventually resurrects Lazarus, there's a big crowd.
Yeah.
But when he resurrects this girl, he said, don't tell anybody, and he only took a few people, right? So he goes up there.
Same three, by the way, that went to the transfiguration.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a point in that. When they came to the home of the synagogue ruler, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. Of course, back then they hired these professional wailers,
right,
which is kind of weird. He went in and said to them, why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep. Well, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Why is he? Look, I said this many times. When Jesus is repeating himself, and it's odd, then we need to figure out.
Take notice.
Why is he bringing this up? But they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said, Tabitha cum, which means little girl, get up or wake up. Immediately the girl stood up and walked around. She was 12 years old. At this they were completely astonished.
Nobody's laughing now.
He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this. So I bring that up because I think eventually when you get into passages like Revelation 20, it says there's a first resurrection, which kind of implies what? Well, is there a second one?
Yeah.
you know,
right.
I mean, naturally.
Yeah.
Now it talks about a second death, and you're like, what does all that mean? And I want to wade into all that, but I also want to zero in on a term, which is why I wanted to go through this in this way, is where in Colossians 1, it says in verse 18 that Jesus is the firstborn from the dead. And Revelation 1:5 says it too. Jesus is the firstborn from the dead. Because a lot of people say, well, other people were raised from the dead. Why? And I'm just giving you an example. Now you immediately want to answer with Lazarus was resuscitated. He got his life back,
right?
But he died again. But there are other bizarre resurrection happenings. Remember when Jesus died and the tombs were opened up?
People walked into the city like a zombie. Yeah.
Exactly. So I wanted to to kind of go down that rabbit hole, because when we get to the more difficult passages, because Jesus is the firstborn from the dead, but we need to figure out what that means.
Yeah.
And so I was just laying down the foundation for going down all those rabbit holes.
And what differentiates his resurrection from any other ones that happen, which there's quite a few in there. So
Exactly.
yeah. All right. So we're out of time, but we're going to pick it up here. We're in John chapter 11. So read ahead, look for your rabbit holes, and we'll see you next time on Unashamed. Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube. And be sure to click the little bell and choose all notifications to watch every episode.